We'll take a closer look at the issue of political donations and concern about alleged Chinese government influence on New Zealand politics. This is a key issue to come out of the week's events, according to Professor Anne-Marie Brady, an expert on Chinese politics from Canterbury University. Jung Yu-kun, who was named by Jamie Lee Ross as the businessman who allegedly donated $100,000 to the National Party, and we have tried to contact Mr Jung to confirm this, but as yet have not heard back. Now, I asked Professor Brady, was there really anything wrong with Mr Jung, a successful businessman who's lived here for 18 years, wanting to support a political party?
Jung Yu-kun is significant because he is a leader in United Front work activity both in China and in New Zealand. So it's great for the Chinese community to be involved in politics in New Zealand. That's what we want. And it's fine for wealthy people to be contributing to political parties, but it's not okay for people who are connected to the politics of a foreign government that has a deliberate policy to interfere in the policies of other nations through what's called United Front work, to be making targeted, or the allegations are targeted donations into one of our major political parties and setting conditions as well on that about asking for a particular candidate to be put up in that party.
And do you believe there is evidence to suggest he is linked to United Front activities? Is there evidence?
Yes, there's very detailed evidence available online in Chinese language sources about Mr Jung's background.
All right, United Front, tell me more about this idea or this concept from the Chinese government. What are they hoping to achieve that is different than, say, any nation looking to influence other countries in any way they do?
Well, for the people who are interested in Communist Party history, the United Front work idea comes from Lenin. So it's a basic tactic of communist parties. And it can have both a role in domestic politics as well within China, or the Soviet Union as it used to be, as well as in foreign policy. And under Xi Jinping, United Front work in foreign policy has gone into hyperdrive. It has a very prominent role in China's now very assertive foreign policy. So what we need to do in New Zealand is to understand China as it really is, to understand that China is a party state and has some practices, foreign policy practices, that are different from our own. And we need to engage in a process of upskilling our local and our central level politicians in the public sector in the ABC of the Chinese party state, so we can have a constructive relationship with China, an eyes wide open relationship with China, and one that sets boundaries around inappropriate behaviour.
So what is it that they want? Is it to have a strong control of the Chinese community in New Zealand, or are they looking to directly influence the political process in New Zealand? What do they want?
Well, there's a number of aspects to this. So Xi Jinping is definitely very interested in the Chinese diaspora and wants to neutralise them and neutralise their media, because in a porous global information environment, if the Chinese language media in New Zealand and the United States and Australia was genuinely pluralistic and offering critical views on the situation in China, then that would have an impact on the politics of China. And the same for the community groups and in Chinese society abroad. The Chinese government would not like it to be supporting Chinese dissidents. But that has a ripple effect on our own society, because then it puts constraints about what can and can't be said around China within our society. But the interests of the Chinese Communist Party and United Front work go beyond trying to neutralise and manage the overseas Chinese diaspora for those political agendas. It actually has an impact in terms of China's growing foreign policy and their ambitions to create what they call globalisation point 2. And the Belt Road Initiative, as it's called, which is China's project to have a China-centred global economic order, is all part of that. And New Zealand's been brought into that last year, or 2 years ago. New Zealand signed a memorandum of agreement on the Belt Road Initiative the first ever Western country to do so.
Winston Peters has raised some questions about whether we would stay committed to that. What I want to know is, how does New Zealand then navigate this process? Do we need a select committee inquiry? Do we need more investigation? Because not a lot of politicians are speaking out about it. How do you navigate this process without becoming xenophobic, without fostering sort of anti-Chinese sentiment, without damaging the relationship?
Well, the government needs to engage in a careful investigation in the extent of China's political interference activities in New Zealand, as the Australian government did, as the United States government is now doing, as the United Kingdom is engaging in that process of doing so. And I say this on the basis of conversations that I've been having internationally. And then they need to look at what to do next. And amongst the things that I would suggest that they need to do next is obviously reform the Electoral Financing Act. They need to look around stand-down periods for our members of parliament to inhibit their being manipulated by other forces who want to use their proximity to power. We want to look at whether it's acceptable, whether or not our MPs can be members of foreign political parties as well as New Zealand political parties. And very importantly, we also need to work with our New Zealand Chinese community and help return them to autonomy and independence and protection from these activities and the Chinese Communist Party is trying to manipulate and control them. We also need to find a way to support our New Zealand Chinese language media and return it to what it used to be when I was a student learning Chinese at Auckland University, where it used to be an Indigenous New Zealand media, like all the rest of the media in New Zealand, that reflected a range of voices, not one voice, the Xinhua voice.
In terms of New Zealand's other Five Eyes partners, do you think that they will now be expecting New Zealand to do something on this, that there will be disappointment if we don't take some sort of an inquiry or do something?
In September, New Zealand and our four other partners who are part of the Five Eyes joined a grouping called the Counter Foreign Interference Grouping. So New Zealand is already part of international efforts to address these concerns. So we will already be doing something, but this political bloodbath that has unfolded before our eyes this week is an opportunity for the major parties to come together and address this very serious issue, that they are all being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party's political interference activities, whether they take the campaign donations or not. They are all being targeted by it. And as I said, we need to upskill our knowledge about the Chinese Party state and develop a clear-eyed relationship with China that is a constructive relationship but sets boundaries around inappropriate behaviour.
And are you concerned about yourself in terms of you speaking out and any blowback?
Well, you know, it's my job to be, as an academic in New Zealand, under law and in the contract that I have with the University of Canterbury, is the critic and conscience role of the academic. So I am doing my job. There is a cost, a political cost, a personal cost on me and my family, but this is really important, very, very important. It's about the integrity of our political system. And so I'm willing to stand up and speak out about these issues, and I'd like to see more people to do that.
Professor Anne-Marie Brady speaking to me on Friday. Now, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson was actually asked about the allegations on Friday. They didn't know the specifics of this New Zealand case, but they were quoted as saying in response that China has no intention and has never intended to interfere in the internal affairs of other